Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So today we're continuing series, the Unported Playlist, where I take a look at my favorite unported arcade games of all time, and today that's just not true, because we are playing Survival Arts by Scarab and Sammy, and pretty much every time I mention Sammy on Unported Playlist, I do not have a fun time. But when I did the Tattoo Assassins video, pretty much everyone asked me when I was going to cover Survival Arts. I get a lot of requests for it, so I figured why not do an episode. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But obviously, if you can't tell already, Survival Arts is a Mortal Kombat clone. It's got digitized actors, it's got the digitized backgrounds, everything in here is trying to be Mortal Kombat. It is just absolute pure jank of the highest order, and I love all of the characters as well. Some of them just look like they're wearing costumes from your local Halloween store when it pops up around September to October. And all of the animations, all of the moves, all of the game just has C-tier jank written all over it. It is so easy to cheese the CPU. Sometimes if you actually just try to pull off combos, you're going to get totally destroyed. But if you just keep jumping at them and kicking them, somehow that seems to 100% just get by the CPU's ability to block anything, and you can just kind of breeze through the early levels of the game. Sometimes this game will just do stuff I've never seen before. Look at Mongo's life bar. It is empty. But he is not dead. His life bar is at 0, but somehow he still persists. He still has health left. I've never seen that in a fighting game before, and I don't think I'll ever see it after, but tell me down below if you've ever noticed that. But I get why people love having me talk about these games, because talking about bad fighting games can in and of itself be an art form. Trying to parse through what the developers were trying to do and try to talk about something that maybe you saw in arcades once and never again is always a fun time. But this was the era of every company trying to make it big in fighting games. They were huge business. The Street Fighters, the Mortal Kombats, the different SNK properties were getting a ton of quarters in arcades, and pretty much every other arcade developer saw how much money was available to be made, and they wanted their piece of the pie. Unfortunately, there was too many cooks in the kitchen, and some of them delivered completely flavorless meals like Survival Arts. Even the bonus round, kind of like Street Fighter where you have to destroy a car, makes no sense. We're just in the desert, and now all of a sudden there's a bunch of TVs and stereo systems behind sand dunes that you need to kick, including what looks like either a refrigerator or a filing cabinet. Contextually, that makes no sense whatsoever. Granted, in Street Fighter it was never explained why you would destroy a car, or even in Final Fight, but destroying things for bonus points was always a thing, and Survival Arts did it, but in the strangest way possible that I've never seen before. And take a look at Hannah right here, or Hannah depending on how you want to pronounce it. Her blur effect is just basically having the sprite stay where it is and smearing it across the screen. There's absolutely no sense of motion in it whatsoever. It's got this weird staccato movement. I will say that the digitized sprites do have a decent amount of frames of animation in them. I've seen a lot worse sprite work, both in traditional sprites as well as the digitized actors that have been turned into sprites. So at least on the animation side, they did a decent job of giving the characters enough frames, but then you have effects like that, you're not even sure exactly what happened. And sometimes this game will just randomly throw weapons onto the ground. You can pick up a handgun, try to shoot your opponent, and you're basically going to miss with every single bullet, because they either miss and don't register whatsoever, or your opponent blocks them with their forearm. And I'm not sure if you know how these things work in real life, but do not try to block a bullet with your forearm. 10 out of 10 times it is not going to work out well for you. As we move over to Viper here, his costume literally looks like he's just wearing ninja pajamas. This looks like something that you would have worn to a friend's house for a sleepover in like the early 90s when you were 7 or 8 years old. And again, that blurring effect is just absolutely hilarious, as is his win animation. This game is just funny all the way across the board. As far as the fighting mechanics are concerned, do you even really care to hear about them? Of course, I'm going to talk about them after the music break, but honestly, this game from start to finish is an experience that you definitely should have, just maybe not one that you're going to enjoy for the right reasons, but it is enjoyable for all the wrong reasons, and I will get to that in just a moment. But go ahead and listen to the soundtrack, because it does exist. 45 seconds of Survival Arts music, and I'll be right back with more details about the game. So yeah, the soundtrack is the most generic thing you're ever going to hear. The sound effects are definitely too loud for the overall sound balance, and everything else about the game is just kind of matching the same. This was just one of those things. People were trying to make the next arcade fighting game hit in the 90s, because if you had something take off, you were guaranteed basically to print money for a while. Unfortunately, Survival Arts definitely went for the easy road and tried to churn out a very quick game, because it is very impressive to take something like Survival Arts and make Tattoo Assassins look good by comparison. This is definitely the most Mortal Kombat clone of all of the clones, and honestly it's not the best game in the world, but it is an absolute Mona Lisa masterpiece compared to what Survival Arts delivers. I almost put Survival Arts on Janktoberfest, but I didn't have a time and chance to make it then, so I figured I would just run another extra bonus episode a little bit in the future. As we move over and grab other characters as well, you're just going to see that pretty much everything is very stilted. Sure, there's a lot of frames of animation, but the hit detection is not very good, and honestly pulling off any sort of special move feels pretty much down to luck. Sometimes you'll do the same input more than once and get completely different results, and I've been playing fighting games long enough. I might not be an expert at them, I might not be winning any tournaments, but I know the difference between me inputting the command improperly and the game not taking what I'm trying to give to it. But at least they did give you a little bit of a story, which is hilarious in its own right. They did try with this game, and that's the thing. I never make fun of games, and I don't just trash them for no good reason. That's not what the channel's about. You know I love me some janky stuff. But honestly, Survival Arts just doesn't get anything right. It is weird, it's strange, it doesn't play very well, and you can definitely tell it was rushed. If there's one thing that I will give it credit for, is some of the backgrounds, like right here, can be a little bit charming. That gigantic pot in the background with the water coming out of it, all the flowers coming out of the top, it does look decent enough. But once you get to about round 6 in the game, this game becomes insanely difficult. I am on easy mode, and getting through the first 5 matches, even on normal or hard, is not bad whatsoever. But once you get to the 6th round, the CPU basically absolutely decimates you with everything, so even seeing the credits on this game are going to become very difficult. You can get almost to the end on 1 credit, but if you actually want to see the end, be prepared to spend big virtual money in emulation or actual quarters if you ever find a cabinet for this one, because it is going to just destroy you with everything it has. The CPU becomes basically sentient by the time you get to this area. And if you want to see different backgrounds, that is tough, because every single time you start the game, it runs the same opponents in the same order on these same backgrounds, and it doesn't really seem to matter what you try to do to cheese the CPU here. It is just Nostradamus levels of predictive. But that's the interesting thing about Survival Arts. It exists. It is a game. This was actually scheduled to get ported to both the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo, but apparently it absolutely failed in arcades, and those ports were quietly canceled, which makes total sense. I'm sure they saw the sales figures and the overall revenue generation of these cabinets on arcade floors and just said, this is not worth it, let's cut our losses and move on. But if you've ever played this game in arcades before, let me know. If you're a fan of it, I would be curious. I'm not trying to tell you not to like this game, I'm just saying I don't like this game. Everyone gets their opinion here in the comments, so long as they're nice about it. But go play Survival Arts, definitely check it out. It is an experience, and I'll be back next week with something that I would consider a good game. But we are done. Bye-bye.
Mango. Viper.